Hello and welcome to Charlie's Desk. So this episode is about watches, and I'm going to take apart an old-fashioned pocket watch and do my best to describe what's inside it and also how it works. And the desk is kind of covered with watch parts, watches and cases, but then also the movements. And the movements, they're kind of this, they're the size of, well, they vary in sizes. The ones I have here are about the size of like a Girl Scout cookie. And the movement is just the mechanics of the watch, what makes the watch tick. But I'll start with a watch that's in a case. And yeah, so it's metal. It feels cool. It's probably a couple of ounces, you know, 2 or maybe 3 or 4. Okay, and it's a little over 2 inches in diameter, and on one side of it, it has sticking out a knob which you can wind and push in and out. It has 2 positions, in and out, and you can also push in a little extra knob that will open up the front face of the watch to, oh, that's the back face, the front face of the watch to read it. No wonder. A little extra button for that. Okay. So then I have revealed the face of the watch. This watch is a Royal National Institute for the Blind pocket watch. It's of the blind now. And it reveals a dial, a face of the watch that is marked with dots. There's 3 dots at the 12 o'clock position, 2 dots for 3, 6, and 9, and then 1 dot at the rest of the numbers around the clock. And then there's 2 hands. There's the minute hand, which goes around makes 1 revolution per hour, and then there is the hour hand, which makes 1 revolution every 12 hours. And you can open and close the front face of the watch, and to keep it safe, and then read it when you need to. Click shut, and then if you open the back of the watch, there's usually 2 doors. All right, and there's 1, and then 2, and that's when you get to the movement. You can see the movement of the watch, the mechanics, the cogs and gears, and that's what I'm going to try and do my best to describe, but there's a lot going on in there. Gosh, what's the best way to start? I guess we'll go by function. Okay, that Royal National Institute for the Blind watch isn't working, so I'll grab a watch that is working. Okay. So this watch has a gold colored case, and it's not for people who are blind or visually impaired. And one thing that's interesting is you can see how skinny the minute and second hands are, and that is a big difference between conventional watches and watches for the blind, is they really beef up the hands of the watch. But anyways, I wanted to talk about the crown, so how you interact with the watch. So if you pull out the crown, then you can set the time. So when you turn the knob on the crown, it moves the hands of the watch so you can set it to the correct time. And then when you push in the watch, you wind it. And that is winding a spring, a coiled piece of metal inside in this little barrel, tighter and tighter. And that is what powers the watch. So let's just start there with what powers the watch. I'm gonna close that up, and then I'm gonna bring to the center of the frame a movement for a watch, and I'm just gonna talk about it. Okay, so I already said it's about the size of a Girl Scout cookie, and if it looked like a map or a globe, there's these plates that hold in all the mechanics, and they kind of look like sort of continents. They don't cover everything. Okay, now I'm gonna hold up this watch. Okay, and just talk about what it says. So this one was made by the American Waltham Watch Co. It says as a safety barrel. It doesn't say how many jewels it has. Is there another one? So when a watch says it has a certain amount of jewels, it's not kidding. There's actual like jewels in there, little tiny ones, because they're frictionless. Oh, here's one that says, this one's a New York Standard Watch Co. It has 7 jewels. So they're little, they're on the end of these little axles and things so they're frictionless. So the watch can tick and things can spin without friction. And that's why they use the jewels, because they're very smooth. Okay, so let's get back to the removing the plates. And I was talking about how the watch is powered. So let's see if we can take a look at a barrel spring. So I'll remove, and the plates are kind of named for what they cover. Okay. All right, so I removed 2 of the plates to reveal kind of 2 critical parts of the watch, and everything's like intertwined. So cogs, they're like, you know, little wheels. And this one, they're made of brass, and they have spokes like wheels have, but around the outside of them, they have teeth. It's almost like the tread of a tire, if you've never felt one before. And they're very skinny and tiny. They're, you know, they're fractions of an inch in diameter. And the teeth have different ratios. They interact and mesh with each other in different ratios. So, you know, a cog might be associated with the hour hand, okay, and that's gonna rotate once around every 12 hours, or the minute hand, which is gonna rotate once around per hour. And so these cogs release power from the barrel spring. So, but they're in my way, so I kind of need to get them out of the way if I want to get into the barrel spring. So let's see what just takes off. So there's some mechanics that connect to the crown. It's called the stem, and those have little gears that engage and wind things. And then let's see, I may need to get some tweezers to remove this sort of, what would you call it? The center wheel. The center wheel has got to be removed to get to the barrel. Whoa! Whoa. Okay, yeah. So there was a lot of tension on this watch, and then when I undid it, it spun around a whole bunch. Okay, so I'm gonna remove the ratchet wheel. So that clicking that you hear when you wind the watch is this ratchet wheel, and it can only spin in one direction. There's a little clicker that prevents it from going back the other way, and that covers up the barrel, which contains this thin piece of coiled metal. It's hardened metal that's about a foot long, but it's coiled into something that's smaller than a dime. A little barrel that's smaller than a dime. So I'm gonna use some tweezers to pull this out, and then you can see the spring just expand, and you'll hear it. So it's going from the diameter right now. I'll measure it with the squirrel calipers. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the diameter of this little spring is, I gotta rotate it this way so I can read it. Wow, okay, so it's 1/4 of an inch. So pretty small, okay? It's a little barrel, and there's a spring wound up in there. I'm just gonna use some tweezers to pull it out, because that's what's stopping it from expanding. Oh, whoa. That one's flying. That's the barrel case. I'll find it later. Okay, so now you see this spiral of the hardened metal. This is that's the barrel spring. Now what's the diameter? Almost 1.25 inches. So we go from 1/4 inch to almost 1.25 inches. So that the tension on this is slowly released by the next thing that we're going to get to, which is called the balance wheel, and that's what makes the watch tick. So there's I'll go back to our sort of main watch that I'm taking apart, and there's a plate that covers the balance wheel. Where I'm going to remove that. Okay. Now the balance wheel is what releases tension from the spring, and it's a pretty nifty mechanism, and it's what makes the watch. It's what the ticking is, the back and forth thing. Okay. Now the balance wheel is mounted on the balance wheel spring stud, and this thing is it's engineered to be like kind of shock proof in case you drop the watch. So and this is another tiny spring, and this thing bounces back and forth, and there's this thing, it's something fork. Okay, I gotta find it. The balance wheel, balance ring, the pallet jewel. Yeah, it's just like it's a pallet fork. Yeah, the pallet fork, and that clicks back and forth and releases the energy that's stored by the spring, and that is what powers the wheels, which move the hands of the watch. So I'll just remove the plate that is connected to the hairspring. Okay, so this is just a tiny little coil of metal. You know, I measured that last coil, and now it was 1.25 inches in diameter. And this one is the diameter of, oh my goodness, the coil is, it is 3/16 of an inch. So it is very tiny. I'll kind of pull it apart. Yeah, so that's a spring, and then the balance wheel, it looks like it has these little like weights kind of screwed into it, and yeah, its job is just to bounce back and forth and release the sort of power from the spring one tick at a time. And a common beat rate per hour for watches is 21,600 beats per hour, or 6 beats per second. So I'm looking now for the pallet fork, but I'm having trouble finding it. Did I already take it out? I think I need to remove more. Oh, I need an even tinier screwdriver. So there's lots of little plates holding the machinery in place to remove with little tiny screws. Come on. Oh dear. You need a magnifying glass for this stuff. That's how tiny it is. My goodness. Where is it? So the front plate is the gears are on the back side of the front plate, and on the other side of the front plate is the face of the watch and the hands. I'm trying to see if I can. Oh, I see it now. It's just under this plate that, Oh, no wonder I picked up the wrong screwdriver. It would never work with that one. There we go. So you can see this fork. Yeah. So this is a fork with 2 points, and the points engage with a wheel, and you know, they move back and forth, which allows that wheel to turn and power the other wheels. Okay. And this fork has 2 little jewels. Each point of the fork is actually an actual jewel. So it's frictionless, and these jewels engage with that wheel, as I said, and also engage with the hairspring, and they move back and forth, and yeah, release the power from the watch. Okay, so just to review, so you wind the watch to power it, and you're winding up this spring, which is this long, here I'll zoom out actually, this really long, I have to zoom out even more, hardened piece of metal. I measured the other one at 16 inches. I wonder what this one will be. So I'm just stretching it out. And then what's nice about this, the black sort of sewing mat that I have is you can measure things against it. Ooh, yeah, 16 inches. All coiled up in a tiny little thing, less than the size of a dime. Okay, and then I showed everyone the palette fork, which is very tiny. It just fits, you know, it's smaller than it's about this, it's smaller than a Braille cell. And yeah, oh yeah, this is another important part, the hairspring, the balance wheel. It's this wheel on a little spring. Its job is to bounce back and forth. It engages with the palette fork. Yeah, it's tough to describe everything because it's so tiny, and I didn't nearly get to everything. There's a ton of little parts now, all in this little cookie-sized package. Maybe, I don't know, 40 or 50 parts at least. So maybe more actually, because this is just a component of a watch that was already missing some pieces that if you want, you can get a bunch of like broken watches. And you can even get, you know, watches with Braille dials if you want, which are pretty cool. Yeah, so I don't know, did my best. We'll see. Anyways, take care, everyone. And this has just been another episode of Charlie's Desk. Bye.